like to call to order the Wilson School Board meeting for Monday, November 20th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Here.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Mrs. Casper, Dr. Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. Martin, Mr. McCray,
Here.
Mr. Negrini,
Here.
Mr. Schneider,
Here.
Mrs. Cocker.
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors. March. Thank you to our JROTC for posting the colors. This evening, we're going to start our meeting with a communication piece recognizing our outgoing school board directors. Unfortunately, Mr. Martin had circumstances out of his control and was unable to join us this evening. However, as you can see on the screen, he had been a school board member for 24 years, which I don't have the records, but has to be at least on the top 5 for length of service. So possibly the longest, I guess we could look back. But I thought it would be appropriate to, although he's not here this evening, he can always play back our comments, and maybe everyone could share some thoughts on Mr. Martin and his service to our district, if anybody would like to. Mr. Negrini?
I would love to. You know, obviously, I've spent a number of years with Mr. Martin, and first and foremost, Mr. Martin makes you think from a different perspective. Mr. Martin certainly has always had the interests of those that no longer have children in the district. He has been mindful of our fiscal responsibilities, and having served on the Finance Committee with Mr. Martin through the years, it's very much appreciated the questions that he asks in terms of the spending of money. He certainly, to that extent, is the true definition of a public servant when it comes to taxpayer money. And I appreciate all the words of wisdom that Mr. Martin has shared with me through the years. I certainly wish him the best as his time on this board has come to an end, but certainly someone who has given 24 years for a job that does not pay any money and rarely comes with words of appreciation, but more often with questions and criticism. He has done so selflessly, and so for that I'm grateful for Mr. Martin and his time to this district.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other comments from the board?
I would just add, part of the reason I ran for school board was because of Mike Martin. In somewhat a challenging way, and I have to say, as I became a board member, I did grow, and Mike and I built a very good relationship, and I learned a lot from him. He always, to Jay's point, had the best interests of the community, learned a lot with regard to good contracts, open policies, and making sure that sunshine laws and meetings are held and not behind closed doors. So Mike really challenged us as a board to be a better board. So we will miss that part of Mike. So he was a great board member in many ways. So he'll be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Mr. Schneider, yeah.
Yeah, to Mr. Negrini's other point about him challenging the view that I may have had going into a situation, I found that often it gave me great pause, and I'm appreciative of that for expanding my view. I also, to Mr. Case's comment, was very grateful as a new board member for the direction that he gave me in how to handle board meetings. And again, the selfless nature of 24 years of service can't be emphasized enough. So I would thank him for that.
Dr. Kennedy, sorry, we went out of order. We probably should have just gone down the line.
I would like to thank Mr. Martin for his dedication to the residents of ours that are on a fixed income that he never, ever forgot about. And does make me think about it even when he's not here. So I think that legacy will last. I do want to warn Mr. Martin that I am holding him to the possibility that he might be giving tours of St. John Saint Church. And he had told me a story that they used to tell stories about who's buried there. You know, there's someone buried there that has served in every war in the history of the United States, starting with the Revolutionary War. And most of the graves in the front cemetery are German. It's one of the most beautiful, like, strangely comforting places locally. And he told me that they stopped that. And I don't know why, because I would go there in a hot second, and I would love to hear his, have him take a tour. And I think that would be a fabulous retirement job for him. So I will be the first one signed up. And again, I do appreciate him in his work in the community for 24 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Mr. Hart?
I just want to thank Mr. Martin for his 24 years of service. I've been on the board with him for the past 8 years. I met him back in 2007 when I started in the district, when he was one of my adopted board members. Mike took the time to understand every grade level, every classroom, special needs or not. He took the time over 5 or 6 different times coming to the building, touring the building, sitting in on class, all the classrooms at one point, and eating lunch with the students every time he was there. So I have great respect for Mr. Martin. He and I did not always see eye to eye, but we always agreed to disagree, but do it respectfully with one another. So thank Mr. Martin for his service. It will be missed. It's great history that the board will be losing, but I wish him well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Mr. McCray?
I too will obviously thank Mr. Martin for his 24 years of service. I think something probably no one on this board will maybe even aspire to reach, but good for him for all those years of dedication to the district and to our residents and to our students. I would say one of the things of having Mr. Martin on the board is it's always good for a board not to engage in groupthink and have someone that's always willing to speak their mind and challenge in any situation. And I think that makes for a better board, in this case, a better district.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. And I would just echo what the other board members shared. Mr. Martin, I believe, was a board member when I was a student, when I was a teacher, and then obviously as a board member, as a colleague. So he impacted my life throughout. And as a board member, he and I obviously didn't see eye to eye on everything, but we found common ground when it came to certain things on extracurricular. And I found that mostly our love for baseball and our feelings on certain extracurricular decisions kind of bonded us on that committee. So I appreciate Mr. Martin's 24 years. Like Mr. McCray said, not that anybody here even aspires to that. So his, above and beyond what any community member would expect. So we really appreciate that. Dr.
I
Rickett?
doubt that you love baseball as much as Mr. Martin when your email address is ilovebaseball@gmail, but nonetheless.
That's a great, thank you, Mr. Negrini. That's an excellent point. Almost as much. Dr. Trickett?
As I'm reflecting on the comments from our fellow board members, I'm thinking in my mind, why would someone choose to selflessly give of their time and their talent for nearly of a quarter of a century? I mean, if you think about 24 years with a small gap there, he started in kind of the late 90s, served on 4 different committees, was our treasurer, was very involved with the legislative side across the state. Why would someone do that? His boys graduated from Wilson quite some time ago. And I think the answer that Mike would say if he was here, if he had the opportunity to be here, would be because he loved kids. And in all the interactions that I had with him as a teacher and in my different roles throughout the organization and as his neighbor for 10 years, trick-or-treating at his house, I can tell you he truly loved kids. He would do everything in his power to make kids feel special and to make them feel as though their thoughts and their gifts were being honored. As we know, he's very involved here in the school district, also very involved in Boy Scouts of America, Cub Scouts, very involved in his church, frequently at different Wilson events with his wife and his family. And I just know, and I will always remember Mike for caring for kids and for advocating for kids every way that he knew how. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. And I believe, so when board members in their term, there's usually a gift provided. In 24 years, I don't know what the gift was supposed to be. I imagine it was pretty grand, but Mr. Martin chose to donate the money that would go towards that gift to a charity instead. So thank you again, Mr. Martin, for your selflessness. And then not to be 13 years, not that we're going to diminish that, that's also a significant amount of time, Mr. Negrini. Tonight is Mr. Negrini's last evening as a board member, so we would like to also thank you for your commitment to this district and your time, and this time, just to make it easy, why don't we start with Mr. McCray and go around, and it's going to be a little, different because you're here, so.
I'm actually not sure if I've ever shared this story, but the first time I met Mr. Negrini was a little over 30 years ago on a soccer field behind this building. I will say that my team won that night, 1-0. But ever since the time I've been part of this community and been part of this board, I've always looked up to Mr. Negrini for his just great intellect in his approach to every issue that comes before us, his fairness, his even keel, and his obviously dedication to the students, the staff, and the citizens of Wilson. I think he's been a model for me on the board. I've really appreciated my time with him. I will miss my time with him, but really, congratulations on everything you've done for Wilson, and congratulations on having a break now and being able to relax a little bit more on Monday evenings.
Mr. Negrini, I want to thank you for your years of service. I came on 8 years ago, and you were finishing your last year's presidency, and you welcomed me, you took your time to explain to me and help me understand the process of a board meeting. You're very even-keeled, very knowledgeable in so many different areas, and you bring so many different viewpoints from your experiences throughout life, and that will be missed. I always looked at you as someone who had a voice of reason, and regardless of the decision that was being made, you put children first, which is what we all need to do, and I want to thank you for doing that. And I want to thank you again for the rides home. We had a great time discussing our thoughts of the board meeting, and I will miss those. But you have thought about coming back every other week for joining the meetings and taking me home again, right? Anyway, thank you very much for your service. It's truly appreciated.
Oh, you're skipping. No, it's okay. Jay, what can we say? Fireside chats with Jay. When the board gets all out of whack and people start going down different paths, we can always count on you to sort of reel the board back in and give us that even-keeled fireside chat from Jay. I'm going to miss those the most, and I'm being sincere. You have been a great role model. Speaking of welcoming, before I joined the board, I reached out to Jay, who we had coffee, and just when you talk about time of being a board member, it's little things like that of looking out for, succession planning, that you were willing to give an hour of your time for a cup of coffee and kind of share about your board experiences before taking the plunge. So I'll never forget that. But your legal mind, your smarts, and it's going to be extremely missed by all sides of the community. You have been extremely independent and fair, right down the middle, looking at every single decision that's being made from all sorts of sides. So much appreciated, and thank you. Been a great role model.
Well, I've known Mr. Negrini for, we won't say how long, but it was eased on my person when I got elected to the board, knowing that I already knew someone on there and who that person was. I'll just repeat it again. He always carries himself with integrity. He's very even-keeled. And it's the thoughtfulness that go into those fireside chats that I really appreciate, and I think helps to steer this board. So 13 years, thank you.
The entire 6 years I've been here, I've never had anybody else to my left. So I hope the next person doesn't mind me whispering every once in a while, asking a question. I have never met anyone that has a cufflink collection like you, and a sock collection, and a monogram shirt. They're just not going to be able to stand up to you fashion-wise. But in all seriousness, I do feel like when I think about something and should I worry about it, like, I always do look over, like, at your face and think, is Jay worried about this? Is Jay not? You're a very nice gauge that if you're upset, I should be upset. And if you're not stressed, I should not be stressed. And I appreciate that, and I'll miss having you next to me.
Thank you.
So Jay, when we first joined the board, there were 4 new people, and we were we were sworn in and we were just thrown into our seats. And it was nerve-wracking, I had no idea what we were doing, and out of the leadership at the time, I kind of looked to you as like a role model, because you were calm and you asked really kind of the perfect questions, and so I'm still striving for that, like I don't know how you know the perfect question to ask, but you do. And whether it's in pre-board room or in public, you just have this way of knowing what the rest of us aren't thinking about. And I appreciate that. And my goal is to emulate your calm and your confidence in knowing that wherever the board is going, we're staying in the right direction. And I'll hopefully try and harness everyone like you've been doing. Your energy will definitely be missed. So thank you for the 13 years that you've committed to our district. We appreciate you. Dr. Trickett.
Before I begin some of my short remarks here, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about Jay's role here as a board member in the Wilson School District. As we know, he's been on for 13 years, has served in a variety of committees, spending most of his time really in facilities, finance, and working hand in hand with all of our employee groups to settle fair agreements and contracts, which is something I think oftentimes board members don't get enough credit for. It is not easy to work within the confines of what's right for taxpayers in our community while balancing the needs of our staff and the desire and the absolute necessity to hire and retain great people. Since I was a young principal, assistant principal, Jay has served on both the Act 93 and the Labor Teachers Union negotiating teams, where countless, hundreds and hundreds of hours, I'm certain, over those years, Jay, went into those conversations. And again, just an incredible ability to balance everyone's needs and to listen and to create a culture where people truly felt heard and valued. I've never seen anyone with skills quite like that. Skills that we emulate and try to mimic now in the leadership roles that we all serve in. He served as a vice president or vice chair of the board and chairman or president of the board for 2 years, I believe, in each one of those roles. Also worked on the PSBA as our PSBA representative and worked as well with our healthcare trust group. So again, another side of our benefits is obviously negotiating fair health insurance premium shares for our collective group. The work that board members do outside of this room in committees really drives and informs the recommendations that come before the board and come before the community. Tons of time and thought and energy goes into that. And again, I would just say Jay is one to always figure out the right questions to ask, to consider counter perspectives, to ensure that we are at our best when we deliver recommendations to the president and to the full board. 13 years is a long time, Jay. Have been super proud to get to know you and serve alongside you in different capacities. Again, I was reflecting on a time that we shared just recently at a banquet, a team banquet for our children, actually. And I see that Maddie and Isabel, and I believe Ann, are all here in the back. We were at a tennis banquet, actually. There you are, Isabel. And I don't remember if Jay was at the table or not when we were talking about this, but Ann and I were chatting about what brought them to Wilson. and I may butcher this slightly, so I apologize. But essentially, it was as they were dating, very early on in the courtship, if you will, Jay made it very clear to Ann that there was only one place that they were going to live, and that was the Wilson School District. And fast forward to raising two wonderful young people back here, one of our graduates and a current junior. I'm hopeful, Ann, that it was the right decision to come to the Wilson School District. I thank you so much for supporting Jay and to the girls for caring for your father and letting him serve for 13 years. I'm a better person, having gotten to know you over the years, and I'm just deeply thankful for all you've done for me. At this point, after Jay makes some remarks, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to share some gratitude as I reflected on my time here, if I may just have a few minutes, if you could indulge me. I first and foremost want to thank the Wilson community. Serving as an elected official has been an honor and a privilege. I sincerely appreciate the trust that you have placed in me for the past 13 years. I want to thank Jason Hopp and Al Wicks. I am forever grateful that you asked me to consider filling a vacancy of another longstanding board member more than 13 years ago. Both of you believe that I could bring value to a group of 9 that leads our district. To the late George Mack, you demonstrated how a board member could serve with genuine love and passion for this district while doing so with dignity and grace. I am a better public servant having served with him. Thank you to Carol Reed. Serving as your vice president taught me the necessary nuances to navigate leading 9 individuals with 9 different perspectives and opinions. Having served primarily on the facilities and finance committees during my tenure on the board, thank you to Larry Bortz and Diane Richards for introducing me to the world of district operations and public education budget planning. To Christine Schlossman, Jeff Simcox, and your dedicated and hardworking staff, thank you for your collaborative efforts to keep our board and administration fully appraised of the challenges we face from a financial and operational perspective each and every day. To all the current and past board members, administrators, teachers, support staff, and volunteers, thank you for your commitment to the students of the Wilson School District. Each of you have left an indelible mark on the lives of our greatest natural resource. Finally, to my wife Ann, my daughters Maddie and Isabel, thank you for your support all these years. The 3 of you have often were more upset at the complaints or criticisms directed at me than I ever was. There are times when it is more difficult to be a spouse or child of a school board member, yet you always encouraged me to do what was best for our community. I love you. I honestly believe that we can grow as a board, as a district, as a community, if we build each other up rather than tear ourselves apart. We share much more in common with each other than the differences that we focus upon. And finally, my last piece of advice to my fellow board members as you continue to serve our community members with different ideas and opinions, I ask that you embrace the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson when he exclaimed, "Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of dreaming that I am persecuted whenever I'm contradicted." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. I believe we have something to present.
It's customary in the past of the Wilson School District, as President Cocker explained, to offer a gift as a sign of a token of appreciation from our community. Mr. Negrini, having served 13 years on our school board, has selected the rocking chair, which I believe is a great representation of the school district, and hopefully a symbol in your home to remind you of all the good days serving alongside members of this board. So this time, Mr. Negrini, if you'd walk up to receive your chair, and Mrs. Troutman could take a photo, please.
Our next portion of the meeting, Mr. Moravich, do you have any solicitor announcements? Okay, we do have one public participation on agenda items.
Rules of public participation for school board meetings pursuant to Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules, and Board Policy. The following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee or parent or student is speaking, because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer those questions. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the entire board that will need to vote on future matters. Clappy, calling out, and cheering and conversations in the audience are not permitted. Individuals should not approach the board tables. Individuals should make their comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are 3 minutes, and I'll attempt to give a non-disruptive 1-minute warning. Any persons making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is in board docs embedded within the website.
Thank you, Mr. Moravich. We have Chastity Santiago, outgoing board members, item 1.5.
Don't have anything really prepared. This is ad hoc. I just kind of wanted to, first of all, Mr. Negrini, in my entire career, I've worked with many CEOs, VPs, presidents of companies globally, and I've only met 3 people in my life who have been able to view through multiple perspectives and as even-keeled as you are. This community is truly grateful to have your service for 13 years, and we're losing a very valuable resource on this board. But I just want to thank you for your service and thank your family for the sacrifices they have made so you can help everyone in this district. So thank you. I started attending these meetings a little over 2 years ago. It's funny how quickly someone can have an impact on your life. Although Mr. Martin is not here, he has become a part of my family. And I want to thank him for his service, and also thank his wife for her many, many years of his dedication and allowing and sacrificing so he can serve our children and our community. So, thank you. Thank you both, Mr. Magrini and Mr. Martin.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on agenda items. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss real estate. Approval of minutes, 2.1, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on November 6, 2023. Looking for a motion for 2.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Hart, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report, Mr. Negrini? Nope, sorry, Mr. McCray, almost. I jumped the gun. Mr. McCray.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report, investment reports, and general and capital funds financial reports as presented.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. We have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. Motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $3,193,559.56 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 4.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Financial report, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. A motion to approve the financial reports for the month of October 2023, the cafeteria, childcare, and activity accounts of Southern, West, and Senior High School as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
I present my report this evening, including the personnel and program recommendations below.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent items 6.1 through 6.6.
So moved.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Ratification approval of field trips. 7.1, request permission to approve a trip for approximately 25 students in the high school ski club to Killington Resort. 7.2, request permission to approve the athletic field trips as presented. Looking for a motion to approve field trip agenda items 7.1 and 7.2. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 8.1, request to authorize the superintendent to make employment commitments to qualified applicants for the purpose of filling vacancies that occur after the November 20th, 2023 board meeting, with action to be ratified by the school board at the next official meeting. 8.2, request to approve the chief financial officer job description and enter into a 5-year agreement with Mrs. Christine Schlossman as chief financial officer, effective November 21st, 2023 through November 20th, 2028, as attached. 8.3, request to approve the revisited job description for board-certified behavior analyst as attached. 8.4, request to approve a stipend for coverage of additional board-certified behavioral analyst duties as attached. 8.5, request to approve a lead learner for related services and the related services lead learner job description as attached. 8.6, request to approve support staff rate adjustments as attached. 8.7, request to approve the custodial services coordinator job description as attached. And 8.8, request to approve the employee referral bonuses as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources Agenda Items 8.1 through 8.8.
Hart, so moved.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Negrini?
I just want to comment on 8.2, and I'm happy to be part of my last meeting, exercising a vote for Mrs. Schlossman to be here for another 5 years. The challenges that school districts face as far as funding and having a moving target on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis is difficult, but yet Christine and her staff does an excellent job. Doesn't necessarily always give us the information that we want to hear, but gives us the information that we need to hear. And I'm happy to know that the district will be in a good place with her at the helm for the next 5 years, leading the finance office. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion on 8.1 through 8.8? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
And also under Human Resources, 8.10, request to approve the Act 93 agreement as attached. Looking for a motion for 8.10.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Then roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Abstain?
and Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
6 yes, 1 abstain.
Under Student Services, request approval of a resolution approving and adopting a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated November 2nd, 2023. 9.2, request approval of a resolution approving and adopting a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated November 8th, 2023. 9.3, request permission to approve the adoption of a settlement agreement and release to establish an education fund to be held and managed by the district in the amount of $28,500 for legitimate educational expenses, inclusive of attorney fees, to settle and comprise all claims raised by the parents of a high school student during the time the student was enrolled in the district. And 9.4, request approval of a service agreement with Maxim Healthcare Services, Inc. to provide supplemental healthcare staffing to the Wilson School District beginning July 10th, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Student Services Agenda Items 9.1 through 9.4. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 10.1, request approval of a contract with About All Floors to replace flooring in the high school at a cost of $19,244.41 under CoStars. 10.2, request approval to purchase wayfinding signs for Quality Awnings, from Quality Awnings and Signs to be used during the high school Performing Arts Center project construction at a cost of $675. 10.3, request approval of a contract with Heidler Roofing to install an overflow scupper at Spring Ridge at a price of $3,805. 10.4, request approval of a contract with Construction Master Services, LLC, for the southern asphalt pathway at the Southern Stadium at a cost of $7,000. 10.5, request approval of a contract with Promax to install fencing to surround the lower house kilns at a cost of $2,995. And 10.6, request approval to purchase cafeteria tables for Cornwall Terrace from EFS under CoStars at a cost of $4,515.72. Looking for a motion to approve Operations Agenda Items 10.1 through 10.6.
So moved to Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion?
I just wanted to add a couple of comments. We did have a facilities meeting on November 15th at 4:30 PM. That these were some of the recommendations from the Facilities Committee. Just to talk about a couple of these things, the flooring for the upper house of the high school, this is going to be one of the entrances during the construction of the Performing Arts Center, and this would have needed to be done at some point in the future, so this was pulled in a little bit for the Performing Arts Center, because parents and students will be coming through that area quite a bit. The southern asphalt at the stadium, there's a certain path between the track and the main pathway that's just dirt. Gets very muddy during wet games, adding dirt onto the track that needs to continually be cleaned up. So for the small cost of the pavement, this would go a long way for folks that are coming in with wheelchairs or anything, just to navigate that area. The fence surrounding the kilns in the lower house, that was a safety issue, just to keep people away from that. We talked about the cafeteria tables at Cornwall that were needed, and the parapet wall at Spring Ridge. There's an overflow scupper that needs to be cut in the wall to help that roof drain, so we don't have the same situation that we've had recently. And then the wayfinder signs for the high school auditorium, that's just so when folks come, to, any kind of a performing arts, while construction's going on, if they need to navigate to where the gym is through additional doors, those signs will be created and posted that people from outside and actually from inside know how to get around the high school. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Any other discussion on Operations Agenda Items? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 11.1, request approval of the budget transfers dated October 11th, 2023 through November 13th, 2023, as attached. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Takes us to our policies. We do have final readings and vote on the following policies. Policy 137, home education programs, which has been revised. Policy 137.1, extracurricular participation by home education students, which is new. Policy 137.2, participation in co-curricular activities and academic courses by home education students. Policy 137.3, participation in career and technology education programs by home education students. And the revised language is recommended by the PSBA for board consideration as presented. Looking for a motion to approve 12.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. I would just like to point out, and I believe when my younger siblings were in school, there was at least one student, my brother was a football player, and he had a teammate who was homeschooled during the day and then participated in football. So, like we said, just the first one's revised because there have always been opportunities for our homeschool students to participate in certain aspects. I just think that the extended policies, point 1, point 2, and point 3, more broaden the options for students and kind of add specific language for exactly what offerings at our district, students that, while they're homeschooled for the majority of their education, can also participate in other activities within the school district. So having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no.
Enrollment report, as of November 16th, 2023, there are 6,457 students, which is an increase of 14 from the previous report on October 12th, 2023. Which takes us to committee reports. Unfortunately, Mrs. Casper is unable to be here this evening, so we will move on to BCIU and Curriculum Committee with Dr. Kennedy.
Yes, thank you. The Curriculum Committee has not met since our last meeting, but the BCIU did meet this Thursday. It was a busy meeting. The most pressing thing on the agenda was, unfortunately for us, the retirement of Ms. Kozlowski. She is the executive assistant in the office of the executive director, and she's been there for 22 years, and she will be sorely, sorely missed. There were also 6 outgoing board members, so 1/3 of the BCIU board will be a new board next time. Other big news, and I almost called you about this, Mr. Case, because I think you'll find this super interesting. Reading buses always use the BCIU as their transportation, and they have chosen to not renew their contract with the BCIU. They have chosen instead to use National Bus Services with electric buses, which I think will be really interesting because the transportation director told a story about them trying electric buses several years ago, thinking the BCIU would go that way, and they wouldn't start in the winter. So I'm curious. I think it's going to be an interesting experiment. What's great, though, is that even though they got the call, like, pretty much that afternoon from Reading saying they weren't picking up the contract, and it is a big hit financially because they're a huge contract for the IU, they're already thinking of ways to make lemons out of lemonade. And some of the ideas they have for the remaining fleet and for the space, I think are going to be really interesting opportunities that will be better for the district. The last thing that I want to note is, and I knew this, like, you know a fact, but sometimes when you see it on a chart like this, on a line graph, the amount of emergency permitted teachers has now outnumbered the amount of newly certified teachers for the first time. And that, to me, is quite a frightening statistic. So, yeah, sorry to end on, but other than that, great meeting, and thanks to Dr. Hackman as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman? Thank you. Extracurricular Committee met last Monday, November 13th at noon. Some of the, I won't take too many from Bryce's report, which is going to be shared later, but some of our really exciting events that have taken place, which fall under extracurricular. West Middle School had Finding Nemo, the musical. The high school had Charlie Brown musical, and if you weren't able to get to either of those, you definitely missed some amazing performances. Around the room, you can see we have a grand view gallery. It's from Whitfield Elementary School, and it's titled Winter Wonderland. And I absolutely love when any exhibit is up in the Grandview Gallery, but when it's elementary student art, it just gives it an extra feel. And it's all winter, and it definitely feels like it's outside tonight, so it reflects that. And just the variety, my family came, my father-in-law joined us, and he said, it's just a really visually stunning that, because obviously the art teacher gave an example to kind of follow for each class, that they're all grouped together, and while they kind of had the same picture to go off of, to kind of emulate, they all have little unique touches, and it just kind of shows the individual student personalities. So I think it really brightens up the room. Also, coming up in performances, I believe it's on the 30th, is a Grinch musical experience. So it's involving middle school choral students, high school performing, I believe chorus and instrumental. So it should be interesting. It's going to be held at West. And in addition to the non-athletic, we also have our winter sports starting up. So I think maybe students who are participants in both seasons maybe had like a week or two off, back into winter sports. And also on the club co-curricular side, we have 2 new clubs that are going to be formed, the Lego Club in the high school and the Investing Club. So they're all student motivated. Students find an advisor from the high school that's willing to lead their group, and the students get approval, and they form their own clubs, which I think is really a testament to how many offerings and how many things we offer at the high school, especially that students can find their little niche and their interest. So that is my report. We will not meet again until December. So facilities, Mr. Case.
Thank you. The other parts that I would add that weren't mentioned earlier with the items that we passed, we talked about district radios. There was, we have a mixture of some analog that we need to move over to digital radios, for the communication all throughout the district and the buildings. So that's not on today's board, but we're trying to get better numbers for the principals and how many folks need certain radios, as there'll be $1 attached to each radio that we need. So that'll be coming in the future. Also, purchasing chairs, kind of temporary chairs that you can, sort of undo and use for graduation ceremonies. Right now, we rent chairs for many events, and for graduation, our current numbers are 506 seniors right now. So we're looking in the future at getting 600 chairs. Mr. Simcox brought a chair that we were looking at, and based on buying these chairs and storing them, we could get a payback with under 2 years based on some of the rental fees that we are experiencing right now. An update to transportation, Randy Williams reported that Green Valley Elementary School will be the pilot school for testing the Wayfinder program. This is different than the wayfinding signs. I learned that those words are completely different. Wayfinding is signs that help you navigate a building, and Wayfinder is the vendor for the, the bus mapping that we talked about a couple of meetings ago. And then at the Facilities Committee, we also talked about the capital fund spending plan, which there's $687,000 left in the budget, but based on things that are earmarked or approved, as well as today, there's $157,000 remaining for other prioritized projects in the future to be for this year. Yeah. And that's my report. The next meeting's December 11th. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
No report.
It's a good way to end, right? Legislative, Mr. Schneider.
Yeah, as we continue to bait school funding in Harrisburg, a national study came out that showed Pennsylvania had some of the lowest performance in terms of their charter schools. And so that will continue to be a hot button issue. In regards to Dr. Kennedy's statement about new teachers, we are suffering greatly from a teacher shortage. And so one of the things making its way through the General Assembly would be a stipend for student teachers to try and get more of them to do that. And lastly, there's a bill moving through both houses. In the Senate, it was introduced by Wilson Senator Judy Schwank. It's about mental health days being able to be used as sick days for students. That's my report.
Great, thank you, Mr. Schneider. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
No report.
Thank you. Public Relations and Student Outreach, dual. Thank you, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening. Okay, there we go. So first, we're excited to announce that we are once again collecting much-needed items for deployed troops overseas through the Keystone Military Families Stockings for Soldiers project. As you may recall, Wilson High School student Anthony Fiore is the youth ambassador for Keystone Military Families, and this is his 9th year organizing this collection. He's a junior this year, so I said, oh my goodness, next year, you're going to have to get somebody kind of rising up to take this on. This has been a great event for us every year. So donations can be brought to any Wilson School building by Thursday, November 30th, and there will be a special community collection in cooperation with the Pennsylvania State Police that will happen on Friday, December 1st from 7:30 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. in front of the high school building. A list of items that are being collected are available on the homepage of our district website, and I also put some paper lists outside the boardroom that you can pick up and hopefully contribute to this great event. Next, we'd like to share that our 7th grade Global Studies and English classes at Wilson Southern have embarked on a journey to learn about the Holocaust. While learning about the atrocities and inhumanity during this time period, the students are also trying to answer the question, what is 6 million? It's a concept and number most of us cannot fathom, yet our teachers are working to make it tangible for our students. Inspired by the documentary 6 Million Paperclips, these classes are collecting paper clips, one representing each Jewish life lost during the Holocaust, as a way to honor these lives. So our students were even featured on a story, in a story that aired on WFMZ, and you can see on the screen that top image is from the website kind of promoting the story that ran on WFMZ. And any community member can still support this project by sending counted paper clips to Wilson Southern Middle School. And then finally, the district hosted its first ever senior sprint event. The goal of this event was for every member of the senior class to have a touch point with an adult regarding their plans post-graduation. The seniors were asked a series of questions, and the data collected will be used for necessary follow-up with students who need additional support to achieve their goals. A special thanks goes to Victor Brown, who is our 12th grade assistant principal, and Becky Doutrick, who is our new career counselor, for their vision and leadership of the event. As an added bonus, students were treated to free 7 Brew coffee, which was very exciting, and they also received a custom Class of 2024 t-shirt. Many teachers, administrators, and staff members volunteered their time to meet with 417 students during the 3-day event. But for many of us who participated, the best part of this event was witnessing the maturity and respectfulness displayed by our senior class. We're super proud of them, and I talked to a number of people who are interested in education. So we have all that data, and we're super excited, and we certainly will be following up. And then Bryce, who is our student representative, is actually in England right now. He is visiting his brother, who is doing a semester abroad. So Bryce, even though he was in England this morning, shared his report with me, because that is just what Bryce does. So I will try to do my best. Wilson students stayed busy these past couple of weeks leading up to our break. At West Middle School, dozens of students were on stage for their production of Finding Nemo. At Southern, French students engaged in lots of French-themed festivities for National French Week. Also, at Southern, a representative from the Berks County Conservation District helped their school's gardening club learn about native plants. At the high school, AP Psychology students participated in the third annual Brain Smackdown, where they researched and debated topics. Also, at the high school this past weekend, the theater company performed You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown for fifth grade classes on Wednesday during the school day, and then for the community on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we've already talked about how amazing that performance was. And Bryce was one of the leads as Linus and got to tap dance, which was amazing. Finally, students are excited about their much-anticipated Thanksgiving break and look forward to even more great activities resuming when they return. So thank you, Bryce from England.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
I just want to say, we have some incredible students here at Wilson, incredible things going on. It's really a great place. And the Education Foundation is always an inspiration. I say this often, for a Friday morning at 7:30 in the morning, to start the end of the week that way. We had one of our teachers, Ali Fishenich, from Wilson High School, speak about one of her programs, one that had a venture grant for fall 2023. And the great thing about this grant was it was completely student-ridden. So she challenged her students to put together the grant, submit it. It was approved. And what's great about the Education Foundation is, with all the grants that they honor and fund, the teachers and the students occasionally come in and talk about what they did with the grant money. So this, we had a couple of students come in and talk about the Wilson Wire website, which is a student news site at Wilson. And it's kind of, if you go on any kind of college campus, there's going to be some sort of a newspaper or that journalism news type of newspaper, free around to take and read through. That was all done by the students of the university. Well, that is now at Wilson, and anyone can go to it, the wilsonwire.org. And the students talked about it's completely student-led, based, the literary magazine, the web development of the website is all part of it. There's a sports section, there's a sports editor, there's also 13 staff members, and Isabel Negrini is one of the editors of the magazine. So it's a great thing. Check it out online, and again, it's all completely student-led, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that is going to grow through Wilson and be sustained as students come and go, and then pass the baton, to students after them. So it was just a heartwarming presentation, and like I said, you can go to the website and see it. We also talked a bit about the Reading Olympics donation that the Education Foundation made. Each of the, they sent out 50 books, 10 copies of each of the 25 titles. Actually, no, each elementary received 50 books, so 10 copies of each of the 25 titles, which is very generous of the Education Foundation. We thank them. A couple of other things we talked about was there were 22 fall grant applicants, which is a record. It's a good record and a problem to have. 17 of the 22 were approved, and 7 of the 8 buildings were represented, which is incredible. And lastly, a couple things are coming up. The Wilson Iron Chef competition and auction, that's going to be Sunday, March 17th. There's going to be a couple of fun changes to the event, so look forward to that. Mark your calendars. And the next board meeting, I believe, is January 19th. It looks like the date is changed or possibly changing. And that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
Okay, that is the end of our committee reports. Mr. Maravich, we have public participation on non-agenda items.
Slightly truncated. Individuals attending this meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner. It does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but it's that opportunity to offer comments that are on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker. The board respectfully asks that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the board that will need to vote on future matters. Calling, clapping out, or cheering or conversations in the audience are not permitted. Individuals should not approach the board tables and should make their comments from the lectern. Comments are 3 minutes with a 1-minute warning. Any person threatening violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903 in Board Docs.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Chastity Santiago, Policy 249.
I'm speaking to you tonight as a concerned mother of a Wilson student who had a horrible interaction with a member of this school board on Election Day. I notified every single one of you sitting in front of me, begging you to do the right thing, but you collectively decided that what was not a big deal. Well, it's a big deal to my son, and it's a big deal to his parents, which is why my son is here tonight with me, to see all of you completely disregard what Amy Kennedy did to him. My son was very excited to be one of the many Wilson students taking part in the election process. He was volunteering at Haynes Church, polling location, the same location as Amy Kennedy. He even introduced himself as a Wilson student to Amy Kennedy. Shortly after this introduction, a voter asked him a simple question: why do you support these candidates? My son thought for a moment and calmly attempted to explain his viewpoint, but was interrupted by Amy Kennedy when she ran up to my son, trying to position herself between my son and the voter, putting her phone in my son's face, filming him, yelling at him, and calling him a liar. Multiple adults asked Amy Kennedy to stop her aggressive behavior towards a minor, but she refused and continued filming and shouting in an attempt to shame my son. Amy Kennedy could have engaged the 2 other adults that were volunteering with my son. She chose not to. She chose to attack my son for simply stating he did not want girls in his locker room, and he did not want boys in the girls' locker room. This is all he said. If Amy Kennedy is willing to do this to a minor, what else is she willing to do? The Wilson School Board has made it very clear in the past that any threats or acts of violence against students results in the asking for resignation, a town hall, and even censoring of that board member. However, the email response I received from this board late last night is that no action will be taken since Amy Kennedy did not break the law. Forgive me, but I never asked you for your legal opinion. I'm letting the authorities decide that one, not you. Just because Amy Kennedy can direct her aggressive behavior at a minor does not mean she should do it. This board's response is unacceptable, just as Amy Kennedy's behavior was inappropriate, hurtful, and unacceptable. Amy Kennedy violated the Wilson School District's bullying policy, the policy that clearly defines bullying as incidents that occur in or outside of a school setting that affect a student's learning
1 minute.
environment. And clearly, this policy states bullying is prohibited in all forms. My son attends school each day agitated, anxiety-ridden, worrying about retaliation, worrying about encountering Amy Kennedy in school, worrying about how she is going to share this video and who it is going to be shared with. Shame on you for ignoring the choices made by her that hurt your student. Shame on you for not caring about the safety and well-being of a minor. Shame on you for not protecting a child's education. Shame on you for doing nothing. I cannot help but wonder how many other children in this district have you failed to protect, and how many more you will fail in the future. If a board member's aggression towards a minor student is not a clear violation of your bullying policy, then someone please explain what must happen to a minor for this board to act. My son believes in second chances, so consider this your second chance to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener, comments election.
I'm going to miss you, Mr. Greeny, terribly. Good evening. Now that we know that there wasn't an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021, and that it was created by the liberals to look like it was President Trump, we now know the lies that were woven. All footage was released by Speaker Johnson last Friday. You need a copy of it? I'll send it to you. This comes just before the Supreme Court is going to hear the case on the fake riot. This past election, again, was a setup and a fraudulent election. Do you know what the punishment is for tampering with the U.S. election? I'll tell you. According to our U.S. Constitution, it is punishable by death. It is treason against our country. The display of Amy Kennedy at Haynes Church was disgraceful. You all should be ashamed of yourselves. Allowing Amy to remain on the board or any committee or even on this board is simply a double standard. She attacked a nice young man, and I'm sure that the threat of using a video she recorded is against the law. I would like her removed. As a veteran with intel, I can tell you that the ballots were watermarked by the military. There were Blackhawks that circled on election day over our area. There were tracking all of the movements. Wait, you'll see. You now have a completely liberal board, with the exception of Mr. Case, which I feel he is a moderate. There isn't one person on this new board that has any type of accounting background. So now you have a open pocketbook of wild spending on the taxpayer, and the taxpayers will be punished for it. Being a financial aid person does not qualify you to do a budget. This isn't a balanced board. Mr. Case, I pray for you every day, as I will continue. You certainly have your work cut out for you. Brad Hart, I am glad you will not be, I will not be you in front of Jesus someday. You are a complete liar. You don't belong to my church. However, you go to a conservative Bible study on a Wednesday morning, and you told them that you voted conservative all the time to try to get their votes. Lying is something that the Lord hates. You will be judged harshly by God. I have been at every board meeting for the last 10 years. Now, you have, and you have never once voted conservative. You better make it right with Jesus before you get there. You might ask why I didn't bring this up before the elections. I'll tell you why. I'm a Christian, I don't lie, and I felt it was up to the voters to decide. As a conservative, I will never stoop to your level. I hold my head up high to let the public know the issues and let them make the decisions. You all lied, but again, God will judge you. When you start to see massive exits of the public in these districts, don't cry. They won't be enough to meet your spending sprees. And when the parents realize how bad the education is at Wilson, you will have mass exodus of children, either homeschooled or charter. I am talking with everyone out there to pull the kids. And what will you do when they finally come with upward formula to fund the district and you have to actually hold back the purse strings? You are a disgrace to the school, and please resign.
Okay. Bernard McCree, note of thanks.
Good evening. I just wanted to express my thanks to Mr. Negrini, whom I've not gotten to know very well in my time coming to school board meetings, and to Mr. Martin also in his absence, for your service to this board and to this community. And I will be taking you up on your email to me that if I can reach out to you, I will be certainly calling you and communicating with you. And thank you for that offer of support. I also wanted to just express my thanks to the voters of this community for advancing me forward to be on this board. I'm just overwhelmingly excited about being a part of this body of folk who help to make the lives of our students better in this community. So I do encourage your support, everyone, and thank everyone who voted for me. And I look forward to being a part of the committees that I've been spoken to about serving on. I'm looking forward to that. Those things are my passion. And I just, on a happy note ending, I just wanted to make you aware that a Wilson graduate, a Sarah Gatehouse, who is a senior at Kutztown, and her coach, who is in the district here, who lives with her family, are part of Kutztown's NCAA championship field hockey team. And I was so excited because I always go through and look at the team's compositions as they're playing to see who's from Wilson. And so I was excited to find her name on the roster. And we're so excited. We'll be celebrating them tomorrow on campus for their win this past weekend in New Hampshire. So again, thanks, and thanks for allowing me to have a few moments to express my gratitude, and I dare say as I leave that as a manager of $125 million, I am capable of managing a budget.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation for this evening. Do we have any other business from the board? Okay.
Well, I did have a question, I'm sorry.
Oh, Mr. Case, go ahead.
With regard to the buses for Reading, since Mr. Maravich is the solicitor for Reading, I would be curious about, I want to make sure we watch this closely. I know that there may be some different funding structures for the Reading School District with regard to grants and funding, but John, I don't know if maybe you can speak a few words.
Unfortunately, one of my colleagues has been working on it, so I apologize, but I will be glad to come back to the next meeting or before that and provide you with additional information. But I did not work on either the RFP process or the most recent negotiations, so I apologize.
Okay, and I know every now and then I touch base with Randy as well with regard to that, so I'm sure Randy will be watching this as well closely. So I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Any other business from the board? All right, thank you, Mr. Negrini. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, Mr. Negrini, would you like to second that? Meeting adjourned.